So today we're going to dive into this really fascinating new framework that helps explain something huge, why some absolutely brilliant ideas fail, and how AI might be about to completely redraw the map of global economic power. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's kick things off with a puzzle you've probably thought about before. Why is it that some countries invent these incredible, technically amazing products that just, well, they fizzle out? They never quite take over the world. What is the missing piece here?
To try and solve that puzzle, a new research paper puts forward this really powerful idea called the three-dimension firm. And it argues that real success isn't just about being great at one thing, it's about mastering three totally distinct but equally vital capabilities.
Now, the core idea here is that lasting success isn't about just acing one part of the process. No, it's about mastering a whole sequence of three capabilities. And as we're about to see, if you fail in just one, it can completely cancel out your success in the others.
So first up is design capability. This is the initial spark, right? It's the ability to dream up a great idea, a product that actually solves a real-world problem or maybe even creates a brand new desire. This is where all the value really begins. Next, of course, you've got to be able to actually build the thing, and that's your production capability. It's the skill of taking that concept from the whiteboard and turning it into something real, something tangible, and doing it at the right price and at a huge scale. And finally, we have the market interface capability. Look, you can design the world's best product and build it perfectly, but if you can't connect with your customers, if you can't build a brand that they trust and make them want what you have, then really, you've got nothing. Okay, and this brings us to what is maybe the most critical piece of this whole framework, the multiplicative rule. See, it's not about just adding up your strengths in these three areas. The logic is actually way more unforgiving than that, because a single weak link can literally sink the entire ship.
The paper argues these dimensions don't just add to each other, they multiply. Your company's total value isn't design plus production plus market interface. It's design times production times market interface.
This whole concept is actually borrowed from what economists call O-ring theory, which originally looked at why the Space Shuttle Challenger failed. And the point is pretty profound. In any complex system, the final outcome is determined by its weakest part. One single faulty component can cause a total catastrophe, no matter how amazing all the other parts are. And just look at this table. It shows the impact, and it is staggering. Check out that top row. A balanced firm scores a perfect 10 out of 10 in all three areas and creates a total value of 1,000. Now, look at the second firm. It's just as brilliant at design and production, 10s across the board. But its market interface is weak, a 2 out of 10, and its total value just plummets to 200. That's an 80% loss in potential value, all because of one weak link. All right, now let's zoom out a bit, because this framework doesn't just work for individual companies. We can use this exact same multiplicative logic to understand the strengths, the weaknesses, and the competitive advantages of entire countries.
The idea here is that national systems, things shaped by culture, by the education system, even by language, they often have these built-in imbalances. They're naturally stronger in some areas and, you guessed it, weaker in others. Japan is a really classic example of this. The source points out its historic, absolutely world-class production and design skills. But for decades, structural things like language barriers acted as a major bottleneck, which really weakened the country's overall market interface with the rest of the world. And this is where artificial intelligence walks onto the stage and has the potential to change absolutely everything. Because AI isn't just one single force. It can play two very different but equally powerful roles. It can be an amplifier, or it can be an equalizer. So the central question for the future of global competition really becomes this. Is AI an amplifier that's just going to make the gap between the leaders and the followers even wider? Or could it be an equalizer that completely rebalances the entire playing field? So let's break that down. As an amplifier, AI basically makes strong companies even stronger. It turbocharges their existing advantages. But as an equalizer, it can go in and patch over a company's or even a whole country's weakest link, which could fundamentally change their entire competitive position.
So for a country that's already a powerhouse in a certain area, AI often acts as an amplifier. Think of a big US tech firm using generative AI to supercharge its already world-class design teams. They just get even better at what they already do best.
But now, think about the other side of the coin. Think back to that Japanese firm with the weak market interface. All of a sudden, powerful AI language tools can act as an equalizer. They can instantly help overcome a barrier that's existed for decades and unlock all that incredible value they had locked up in their design and production. It goes in and it fixes the weakest link. Now, this equalizer effect opens the door to one of the most transformative possibilities for the global economy, and that's the chance for AI to actually bring factories back home, potentially reversing decades and decades of offshoring.
I mean, for most of our lifetimes, the model has been pretty simple. High-wage countries do all the cool design and R&D, and then they ship the actual manufacturing off to lower-cost countries. But this created a huge gap, right? It separated the people who design things from the people who actually make them.
And this timeline really puts it all in perspective. We went from having design and production integrated back in the 70s to offshoring everything for cost in the 2000s. The huge question this slide poses is whether AI could trigger a massive reshoring in the 2030s, completely changing a 50-year-old trend. The logic here is actually pretty straightforward. As AI and advanced robotics start to automate production, the cost of labor becomes a much smaller piece of the overall puzzle. And suddenly, that wage gap between countries doesn't matter as much, making it economically possible for high-wage, design-focused countries to bring manufacturing back home and reintegrate all that lost knowledge.
And let's be clear, we're not talking about a minor tweak here. This is a potential structural earthquake that could allow advanced economies to completely rebuild the industrial base that they've lost over the last half-century.
And all this leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. As AI starts to fix the weakest links for some countries while enabling others to reintegrate their design and production, we may be witnessing the very beginning of a great rebalancing of global economic power. The map as we know it, well, it could be completely redrawn.